Okay, hello boys and girls, it's Mr. Lee and Shaggy time. I'm going to share with you a story today about the saving of Scotland's Caledonian Pine Forest. Okay, we'll have a wee discussion at the end about Scotland's native woodland. So many years ago, there was a young girl, and she used to spend her days outside in the woodland, and she would sit for hours and hours amongst the pine trees. And in those days there were far more wild animals than we find today. There were the red squirrels, which we still have some today. There were of course the red deer and the roe deer, perhaps some other types of deer. There was a vast variety of woodland birds and all sorts of creatures, great and small. So this story is set way back in the olden days when the Caledonian Pine Forest was at its fullest, and it extended along the length and breadth of Scotland. And as I say, this young girl, she used to spend so much time out in the woodlands on her own that the wild animals and creatures became so used to her, she was almost one of them. Some even say perhaps she could communicate with them. And a long time ago, people said that Scotland, perhaps other lands, were ruled by two goddesses. One was the name of Bride, sometimes known as Saint Bride or Bridget, and the other was known as Bera. In some versions of the story, these two are sisters, but if you saw them, you would never believe that they're sisters, because while Bride had beautiful long blonde hair and bronze sun-kissed skin, she smiled and sang wherever she went. And when Bride ruled the land, the people were happy. Bera, on the other hand, was foul-smelling and ugly. Her skin was mottled blue, her hair was tangled in threads, and she had one eye in the centre of her head which glowed red with rage. And when Bera ruled, the weather turned foul, the leaves fell from the tree. Some even say she used to stamp about the ground, causing thunder and lightning, and with a huge hammer she would smash it on the ground, and wherever she touched, the land turned to ice and everything was frozen. There was almost no sound when Bera ruled the world. The animals went quiet and ran into hibernation. The sleet and snow followed her wherever she went. Food was scarce and people's faces were long and drawn. As I say, back then the people depended on the wild food. They would forage for nuts and berries in the spring and summer, then in autumn. And they would have to collect these from the woodlands in order to help them survive through the cruel, dark months of winter. They would hunt the deers for food. But then, when Bride emerged, the trees unfurled their leaves and blossoms bloomed and fruit ripened, and the place was a land of plenty. The deer grew large and plump, and people loved Bride for being so kind. They sang and danced around in circles and praises, but they never celebrated when Bera was around. And as the years passed, Bera grew jealous of her younger, fairer sister. But these sisters had an agreement, a contract, that when one was ruling, the other would stay far off to the west, beyond the Western Isles. And one day, as Bera sat in her exile out in the cold Western Isles. She knew that she couldn't return, but there was nothing in this agreement that said she could not send someone else over. And Bera was friends with all sorts of dark and sinister creatures, one of which was the most ferocious dragon. And she spoke to the dragon, and she sent this mean, dark creature east towards Scotland. And she created a huge, dark, thick, heavy thundercloud of which the dragon could hide itself. And as the dragon approached the highlands in the west of Scotland, she began to breathe down huge burning balls of flames. And as they fell through the clouds, they set alight the Caledonian woodlands. The trees were scorched. The animals fled to the safety of the rivers and lochsides and the very coastline. And the people ran to their houses. But the flames grew faster and quicker as the winds picked up and carried the flames for miles and miles. The animals ran for shelter. And slowly but surely Scotland's beautiful forest was destroyed mile by mile. What were the people to do? This large, thick cloud showed no sign of moving. The king of the land called all his best hunters and warriors to a meeting. They fear that there's a dragon in this cloud, and our beloved forest is no longer safe until this evil beast is slain. The warriors threw their spears into the clouds, but as they couldn't see their target, they missed. The archers shot arrows into